We've been digging into it, boiling it down to the essentials.
And stuff that can really make a difference for you. Think of us as your shortcut to being, well, seriously well-informed.
Yeah, cutting through the noise, you flagged this whole area of like how to be a better student, and our goal is to pull out some concrete, usable strategies.
And honestly, there's some really smart ideas here. Stuff that goes beyond just the obvious study harder advice.
Definitely. We're looking at what makes for a successful learner.
One of the first things that jumped out at me was this emphasis on how we all learn differently. You know?
Mm-hmm. It's not about finding some single best way.
Right. It's about what truly engages you. And the really interesting point about deep versus surface learning.
Ah, yes, that's a big one. Surface learning is kind of like just scratching the surface, right? Rate memorization.
Like remembering facts just long enough for a quiz.
Exactly. Facts rattling around, but without much context. You might ace the quiz, but ask you to explain it a week later. Or connect it to something else.
Yeah, you hit a wall, blank stare time.
But deep learning, that's different. It's more like building a mental web. You're actively connecting ideas, seeing how they fit.
Understanding the why, not just the what.
Precisely. You understand why the sky is blue, not just that it is. You get the physics behind it.
And what's really encouraging, or maybe surprising, is this idea that deep learning isn't just about better grades. Apparently, it can actually make learning more enjoyable.
It sounds counterintuitive, maybe. But yeah, when you actually get something, when it clicks, that's satisfying. It feels less like a chore.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So what exactly is our mission for you, the listener, in this deep dive?
Well, our mission basically is to pull out some practical tools, real things you can use to amplify your learning.
And we're going to zero in on two key areas today.
Yeah, time management and note-taking, because honestly, these are so foundational. Get these working for you, and a lot of the other study challenges, they tend to become much more manageable.
Okay, let's tackle time management first. Now, I know for some people that phrase just conjures up images of like hyper-organized folks with color-coded everything.
Alphabetized sock drawers, yeah.
Ah, exactly. But this approach we looked at, it presents it as an actual skill you can learn, which is a relief, frankly.
It really is. And the key insight, I think, is that good time management isn't about being some rigid robot. It's not about being glued to a timetable 204/7.
It's more about being organized in a way that actually reduces stress.
Bingo. Reducing stress and helping you create balance. It specifically mentions making time for friends, hobbies, just downtime. That's crucial.
Right? Because burnout is real. You can't just be nose to the grindstone constantly.
Absolutely not. It's about weaving study into your life, not letting it completely take over.
And I liked how they broke down planning into different levels. It's not just about your to-do list for tomorrow.
No, it's much broader thinking. They recommend looking at the whole semester first, then the week, and then the day. It's like zooming in.
Okay, so the semester level, that's the big picture view.
Yeah, that's where you map out the major landmarks, assignment deadlines, test dates, exam periods, get them all down.
They even suggested using different colored pens for different subjects or weightings, like HIS 105 essay 20% in bright red.
Which sounds simple, but visually, it gives you a really clear snapshot of your workload and what the big priorities are across the whole term. No nasty surprises.
Okay, so semester plan is the grand strategy. Then you zoom in to the weekly plan. What's the key there?
The weekly plan is where the magic happens, kind of. You take those big semester goals, those looming deadlines, and you break them into smaller steps. Much less intimidating.
So instead of just work on big project.
Right. It becomes find 3 key articles for big project, or draft intro paragraph for big project, or reserve library book for big project, whatever those small steps are.
Makes those huge tasks feel, well, doable, achievable.
Exactly. And you get that little dopamine hit every time you tick one off. It's that whole how do you eat an elephant thing.
One bite-sized assignment chunk at a time, hopefully less chewy.
Let's hope. And then finally, you get down to the daily plan.
Your classic to-do list.
Sort of, yeah, but with a real focus on prioritizing what really needs to get done today. And crucially, they suggest carrying over any high-priority tasks you didn't finish.
Ah, so they don't just get lost in the shuffle.
No, you keep them front and center until they're done. It maintains that focus on what's critical.
That makes a lot of sense. A tiered system. Semester overview, weekly breakdown, daily focus. Okay, let's switch gears. Note-taking. My personal nemesis.
Huh. You and many others, I suspect. My old notes sometimes look like abstract art.
Mine too. just frantic scribbles. Surely there's a better way.
Absolutely. They frame note-taking in lectures as a really active process, multisensory even.
Active? How so? It feels pretty passive just sitting there writing.
Well, it shouldn't be just passive scribbling. It's about listening intently, processing what you're hearing, then putting it down, preferably in your own words.
Ah, okay. And they made a good point that lectures often give you the context, the nuance, the stories.
Exactly. They flesh out the bare bones you might get from a textbook or slides. It's where the material often comes alive, where you get the lecturer's perspective.
The why behind the what.
Yeah.
That explains why just looking at slides later can feel so flat. You're missing the explanation.
Precisely. And they suggest this three-pronged approach to notes. It's not just what happens during the lecture.
Okay, intrigued again. 3 prongs. Before, during, after.
You got it. Before, during, and after.
So what should we be doing before a lecture? Besides, dragging ourselves out of bed.
Ideally, yeah, you do a quick review, look at the course objectives for that topic, glance over your notes from last time, check any assigned readings.
Kind of priming the pump.
Exactly. Gets your brain warmed up, reminds you of key terms, and maybe helps you spot questions you want answered in the lecture. You go in prepared.
Like reading the menu before ordering. Okay, makes sense. Now, during the lecture, information fire hose time. What then?
Okay, during, pay attention to cues from the lecturer. Things like, this is important, or make sure you understand this concept.
Or when they repeat something, or write it on the board.
Definitely. Note down anything written or shown visually. Use signposting words they use firstly, however. In conclusion, those signal structure.
But the big takeaway is not to try and write everything down word for word.
Please don't. That's the path to hand cramps and not actually understanding anything.
Yeah.
Focus on the core ideas. Think first, then write. Summarize. Use your own words.
Right, because if you're just transcribing, your brain isn't really processing it. It's just stenography.
Pretty much you're catching words, not meaning. And then the crucial third prong, after the lecture. This is where I think a lot of us fall down.
Guilty as charged. My usual after involves packing my bag as fast as possible.
Huh. Well, the guidance here is clear. Review your notes ASAP, as soon as possible after the lecture.
Why so soon?
Because it helps solidify the information while it's fresh. Your recall drops dramatically even just hours later. Reviewing soon locks it in better.
Okay, and they suggest maybe discussing notes with others.
Yeah, great idea. See what they picked up, filling gaps in your own notes. But, and this is important, don't just rewrite your notes neatly.
Oh.
Yeah.
Why not? I thought that was the point.
The goal isn't prettier notes, it's deeper understanding. Rewriting can be passive. Instead, test yourself. Cover up the notes. Try to recall the main points.
Ah, active recall.
Yes. Or create concept maps, diagrams that show how ideas connect. Make it an active review process.
Okay, so interact with the notes, don't just copy them.
Got it.
They also mentioned a specific system, the Cornell note-taking system.
Yeah, the Cornell system. It's a specific format for your page that's really designed to help with that active review process.
How does it work?
You basically divide your page. A main large section on the right for your actual lecture notes. Then a narrower column on the left, the Q column, and a summary space at the bottom.
Okay, so notes go in the big bit. What about the other two?
During the lecture, you just use the main section. Afterwards, when you review, you use the left column to write down keywords, main ideas, or potential test questions related to the notes next to them.
Ah, like prompts.
Exactly. Prompts for later studying. And then you use the bottom space to write a brief summary of the key points covered on that entire page.
I can see how that would be useful. The cues help you test yourself, and the summary forces you to synthesize the main ideas.
Precisely. It builds that review process right into the note format. And they also touch briefly on taking notes from readings. Similar principles apply. Use your own words. Bullet points are good. Short phrases.
And organized by topic, not just by article.
Yeah, that helps you see the bigger picture and how different sources discuss the same ideas. Connect the dots.
This is all incredibly practical. It feels less like some mysterious talent and more like applying good techniques. It's almost like there's a certain, magic to just being organized and active about it.
Well, it's interesting you use the word magic. The underlying message points to the transformative power of just engaging actively.
It's not actual sorcery, obviously.
No. But the magic, if you want to call it that, is in consistently applying these effective strategies. It's the structure, the active processing.
So the real wisdom here isn't some secret knowledge, but it's the practical understanding and use of these skills. like time management and active note-taking.
Exactly that. It's learnable wisdom. These are skills, tools anyone can pick up and use. And that's really empowering, isn't it?
It really is. It means you're not just stuck being bad at studying. You can actually learn to be better at learning.
And that skill set, that wisdom, it goes way beyond exams and essays, being organized, managing time, synthesizing information that's valuable everywhere, in your job and life.
It's like they're fundamentally saying, hey, you got to show up mentally, not just physically. Be an active participant in your own learning.
No more passive osmosis in the back row, hoping it just sinks in.
Yeah, that doesn't really work, does it?
Not for deep understanding, no. So, yeah, the core message is be proactive, be strategic with your time and how you engage with information. It's foundational for success and maybe even enjoyment.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, what are the absolute key takeaways we want our listener, you, to walk away with?
I think the biggest thing is seeing time management and active note-taking not as separate chores, but as interconnected tools. They work together.
Like a system for effective learning.
Exactly. By planning your time intentionally and then engaging actively with the material within that time through good note-taking and review, you set yourself up for deeper understanding.
And hopefully feel less overwhelmed by the sheer volume of information coming at you.
That's a huge part of it. Reducing that feeling of being swamped. It's about taking control.
So the final thought for you listening.
Mm-hmm.
Think about which of these techniques really resonated. Maybe just one thing.
Yeah, don't try to overhaul everything overnight. Pick one. Maybe it's mapping out your semester deadlines.
Or trying the Cornell notes for just one lecture next week.
Mm.
Or even just spending 10 minutes reviewing your notes right after class instead of scrolling your phone.
Commit to experimenting. See how that small shift feels. Observe how it impacts your understanding, your confidence.
Because this is really just the start. It's about unlocking your potential as a learner, finding what works for you.
Absolutely. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep. Thanks for joining us today.